one of the most important things you need to understand when you're bowling is the lane. Previously, many of us went to the bowling alley and just kind of threw the ball and figured we'd see what would happen. But if you understand all of those little markings and things and know how a bowling lane works, you're going to be a much better bowler. This video is going to help you figure some of that out. So let's start with a nice aerial view of a lane. I really like this best because this bowling ball looks really surprised. That makes me happy. But we'll take a look at these different parts one by one. We're going to start by looking at this line right here, which we can see in a real picture on the next frame. So as we look at this guy bowling, we can see that line is actually right here in front of this guy's feet. And you'll notice that his foot is back here. His foot has not crossed the line. That's because that line is called the foul line. And it's called the foul line because you will get fouled if your foot goes across that line. In competition, there's going to be a buzzer. There are sensors right here in the ends of the lanes that are going to know if you've crossed that line. So you need to make sure you keep your foot on the back side of that line. If you actually end up getting fouled, you lose whatever pins you've knocked down for that ball. So you just don't get those pins. It's not a do-over. You just lose those pins. So we really need to make sure that we're staying behind that line. The next thing we're going to take a look at is all the way over here, and this is where actually most of us probably put the majority of our focus when we're bowling. What you're actually going to find out is we're going to put a little less focus there than you would ordinarily think. But let's learn about those pins to begin with. It's useful to have a numbering system for the pins so that you can communicate better with your coach and so that you can kind of just keep better track of where you need to work. So with that numbering system, it's pretty logical. We start with the head pin, and the head pin is pin number 1. That's this one right here. And then you just work your way back row by row. So then we go to pin number 2, pin number 3, next row, pin number 4, 5, 6, last row, 7, 8, 9, 10. You may have heard of something called a 7-10 split. And in the 7-10 split, what that basically means is that you've knocked down all of these pins in between, and you've left up the 7 and the 10 pin. As you can imagine, a 7-10 split is not something that you want to leave up, but it does happen, and that's how it got its name. You may have heard of something called the pocket, and the pocket is really where you want to aim your ball. So we're going to give you some ways to do that, but the end result of where we want our ball to end up is between that 1 and that 3 pin. That's assuming you're a right-handed bowler. Of course, if you're a left-handed bowler, you're going to talk to one of your coaches, and your coaches will help you out with some of the differences there. But the pocket allows you to hit the pins in such a way that this pin will knock down some other pins, and this pin will knock down some other pins, and they will all just take each other out. What you don't want to do is you don't want to hit that head pin straight on the way it shows in a lot of diagrams, because if you send your ball straight through here, what you will end up with is exactly what I was just talking about a minute ago, which is that horrible 7-10 split. And that 7-10 split is almost, not exactly, but almost impossible to pick up. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at the part of the lane that's probably the most important, and it's the part you've probably spent the most time ignoring. We're really going to look at these arrows now. Arrows are going to help you aim your ball to make sure that you don't have that straight-on hit, and you do, in fact, hit your pocket where you want to hit it, to make sure that you end up with as few splits as possible. So in addition to the arrows, there are also these dots back here that are important. That's where you're going to place your feet. But the numbering system for both the dots for your feet and the arrows for your aim are going to be the same. So we're going to take a look at that on a real lane on the next picture. As it turns out, you can actually count the boards on a lane, and they are nicely grouped in 5s. So what we could do is start all the way over here. I don't know why we start on the right, but we do, and that's board number 1. The very next board is board number 2, 3, 4, and look how handy, this is board number 5 at the first arrow. That means that this is board number 10, this is 15, this is 20, 25, 30, 35. And then everything in between is numbered accordingly. So if your coach tells you that you are going to aim your ball for the 7 board, then you're going to look for the first arrow and go 5, 6, aha. This is where I want to try to aim my ball. I want to try to hit right here on this board because that's my target. If the coach tells you that you want to aim for board 3, you're going to come over here and you're going to aim for board 3. If coach tells you that you're going to aim your ball for board 33, then you're going to come over here and you're going to go 31, 32, 33. That's where you're going to aim your ball. So your mark or your aiming spot is going to have a number according to these board numbers. And we start at 1 over here, and then we go up as we go to the left. The same thing is true for your feet. So when we're further back and we're trying to figure out where your feet go, you might start with your feet at 20. You might start with your feet at 17. You might start with your feet at 8. You start with your feet wherever you need to start with your feet. And again, that's going to be based on the coaching and your experience and the different ways that the lanes bowl when you're out there bowling. Have you ever seen this crazy machine zooming up and down the alley? It doesn't really zoom. It's actually pretty slow. But it's a crazy robot machine. What it does is it actually puts oil down on the lanes. There's oil, and that's what's going to help your ball roll differently. That's another reason it's important not to cross the foul line, because if you cross the foul line, you're going to get oil on the bottoms of your shoes, and that's going to cause you to slip and hurt yourself and possibly track oil all over the place and hurt other people. So let's take a look at what happens when this machine lays oil down for us. This is really cool. At some point, the PBA started using blue dyed oil, and they put the oil down on the lanes with this blue dyed oil so that the bowlers could see what was happening with the oil. So this is a pretty common oil pattern. There are all kinds of different oil patterns. So when you're trying to figure out why you can bowl really well at one alley and not at a different alley, it could be the oil pattern. It could be that somebody has really good machines and somebody has really terrible machines. It could also just be the wood. It could be that the wood is really warped, and so you're going to get a different, some different action each way. What the oil does is where there's oil, so in the blue sections of this picture, you're going to get a lot of slipping and sliding of your ball. Where you don't have oil, you're going to get a lot of grip of your ball. So your ball is going to roll differently. So if you start your ball and you throw it down here, it's going to roll differently than if you start your ball here. So we want to make sure that we know what we're doing and working with the oil. The thing about an oil pattern is most of the time you can't see it. We've never had this cool blue oil at our tournaments or our matches. So you're not going to be able to see the oil. You're going to have to kind of figure it out by watching your ball and watching other people's balls and seeing how they roll and how it works. Oil wears away, so the way you bowl in the morning at a tournament is going to be different from the way you bowl in the afternoon, even if you're on the exact same lane, because that oil pattern is going to change. So you always have to be aware of what you're doing. You might need to change your mark. You might need to change your feet. Again, your coaches are going to help you with that, but it's up to you to watch your ball roll and to watch other people's balls roll and try to make those adjustments on your own. That's what makes a really good bowler. So there you go, all about your lane. Hopefully now you feel a little bit more comfortable, you know some of this stuff, and you're going to be ready to go.